believe God is raising up some young men whose mind is made up, whose heart is set on the things of God. In a day and age where a lot of people are saying young people don't love the truth and are walking away from, let me tell you something. That may be true in some places, but there are some good young people at the Pentecostals of Gainesville whose mind is stayed on Jesus. I want you to clap your hands and let's receive Brother Cole as he comes at this time.
If you would stand for the reading of the word, I'll be starting in John chapter 9, verse 1. I give honor to Pastor Tony for this opportunity, but because I only have 5 minutes, that's all you get. Once again, John chapter 9, verse 1. And as Jesus passed by, he saw a man which was blind from his birth. And his disciples asked him, saying, Master, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answered, Neither had this man sinned nor his parents, but that the works of God should be made manifest in him. I must work the works of him that sent me while it is day. The night cometh when no man can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. When he had thus spoken, he spat on the ground, and made clay of the spittle, and he anointed the eyes of the blind man with the clay, and said unto him, Go wash in the pool of Siloam, which is by interpretation sent. He went his way therefore and washed, and came seeing. I felt impressed in the Spirit to deliver a word that I believe will not only reassure, but restore. I want to preach to you today on the subject, Persecuted for divine purpose. Persecuted for divine purpose. The men in our text have been blind from birth, and of course, knowing how people are, we can relate to the response of the disciples. Surely this man must have sinned, or if not him, then his parents, because he had to have done something wrong and be put in this bad condition. But Jesus denies that carnal way of thinking and justifies this man's blindness because of one reason, so that God could work through him. They that are whole need not a physician, but they that are sick. Jesus came not to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. Hospitals are meant to treat people who are in need of treatment, not just anyone gets treated. The sermon really could have been called the threefold purpose for persecution, because there are three main reasons for what you're going through. God healed a blind man, and because of this, it says in verse 38 that he believed. The miracle was so extraordinary that he couldn't help but believe in the one who performed it. The first purpose for your persecution is so that you can believe and be saved. You should never go back to what God has delivered you from. Living for God should always be progressive. It would have been ignorant for that man to go back to the spot where God found him, but what he did after his miracle gave him more than the miracle itself. Reading verses 8 through 11, the neighbors therefore, and they which before had seen him that he was blind, said, Is not this he that sat and begged? Some said, This is he. Others said, He is like him. But he said, I am he. Therefore said they unto him, How are thine eyes opened? He answered and said, A man that is called Jesus made clay and anointed mine eyes, and said unto me, Go to the pool of Siloam and wash. And I went and washed, and I received sight. Skipping down to verse 16. Therefore said some of the Pharisees, This man, being Jesus, is not of God, because he keepeth not the Sabbath day. Others said, How can a man that is a sinner do such miracles? And there was a division among them. The second purpose for your persecution is so that others can believe and be saved. Reading verse 9 again, some said, This is he. Others said, He is like him. But he said, I am he. People may not understand your miracle. Some won't even recognize you in the present because they're so used to seeing you in the past. But when God delivers, and when God heals, and when God sets you free, you can look to those same people and say, I may have been addicted to drugs back then, and I may have struggled with alcohol yesterday. I don't talk the way I used to talk, and I don't act the way I used to act. You may not recognize me now because I'm different from what I was a couple months ago. That's because God turned me around and saved me. I am he. Jesus. Oh. This may bother some of us, but sometimes your miracle isn't only for you. Most of the time, God delivers us so that we can use it as a testimony to reach someone else. The worst thing you can ever do is to get healed and stay silent, to get saved and keep your mouth shut, to get your prayer answered and not say a word. The devil would love for you to keep your miracle to yourself because there are people battling the same things you once were battling. And if they could just hear a testimony from someone who overcame the same battle they're going through, they could find hope, and that hope could lead them to Jesus. That's why you're being targeted so much, because the devil knows the value that you bring when you testify. You ought to be a walking testimony everywhere you go. Use the trials you faced yesterday as a testimony to uplift someone today. Verse 16 says there was a division among the people. That means some believed because of the miracle and some refused because of the hardness of their hearts. If you go door to door and pass out door hangers for 5 hours and only one person shows up, then that's a reason to rejoice, because one person is on their way to salvation as a result of your willingness to testify. We get so caught up over the hundreds of people we didn't reach rather than the few we did reach. I'm here to remind you that heaven still rejoices over one sinner that repents. If you go and fulfill what God called you to do, then he'll fulfill what he promised to do. Don't worry about what's under God's control. Focus on what's under your control. Let your miracle be the foundation for someone else's miracle. If Jesus left the 99 sheep for the one lost sheep, how much more does he value one lost soul? Continuing on in verse 35, Jesus heard that they had cast him out. When he had found him, he said unto him, Dost thou believe on the Son of God? He answered and said, Who is he, Lord, that I might believe on him? And Jesus said unto him, Thou hast both seen him, and it is he that talketh with thee. And he said, Lord, I believe. And I want to highlight these last 4 words, and he worshiped him. The third purpose for your persecution is so that God can get the glory. I've been reading Job for the last week or so, and I never fully understood this concept, but God spoke to me so clearly. We tend to think Job suffered the hardships that he did to prove his faithfulness, and though that's right, we miss out on the main reason for his affliction, to silence the devil. See, God already knew that Job was faithful. Job surely knew that he was faithful to God. Testing Job wasn't a matter of proving his faithfulness to God, but to Satan. God knows all things. How can the God of all knowledge and wisdom be deceived? What I'm about to say may test your theology, but bear with me. It was impossible for Job to fail. Why? Because the devil came up to God to test him. Satan justified Job's faithfulness because God had blessed him in abundance, and that if he were to take all that he had, then Job would turn away from God. The devil messed up because now he's testing God's glory. And every battle that puts God's glory on trial is already lost. God had confidence in Job, so he couldn't fail because God knows all things, so he can't have confidence in someone if he knows they'll fail ahead of time. I say all that to say this. That same God who is with Job is on your side. And the Lord, he it is that doth go before you. He will be with you. He will not fail you, neither forsake you. Fear not, neither be dismayed. Be strong and of a good courage. Be not afraid, neither be dismayed. For the Lord your God is with you whithersoever you go. David had been through trials that tempted his faith, but no matter what he went through, God brought him out. That's why I said, I've been young and now I'm old, yet have I not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. If you fell asleep during the sermon already, just stay awake for this one thing I'm about to tell you, and I'll be done. God answers to the affliction of his anointed. God answers to the affliction of his anointed. God can't help but hear the voice of his people when they cry out to him. Hear me today when I tell you, even the most righteous can be persecuted more than the worst sinner. Stay faithful to God. Keep living for God. Know that God has a purpose for what you're going through. If he put you there, he's able to bring you out. In closing, I urge you to let your miracle turn you to God so that you can be saved, to use it as a testimony for others to be saved. In everything you do, give God all the glory.